When 7 high schoolers explored an abandoned juvenile detention center in Michigan, they expected to find ghosts, but instead, they found a crime scene. Lying beneath a tarp was the body of 22-year-old Kayla Saddowski. She was surrounded by flickering candles, her legs were covered in strange markings, and her face had been painted with a bronze substance. Given the state of the building, police initially considered an overdose or a random act of gang violence. However, security camera footage from the surrounding neighborhood quickly shifted the focus of the investigation. The cameras captured Kayla walking across a bridge and voluntarily entering a black Mercury Milan on the night she vanished. When officers ran the plates, the car came back to 44-year-old Steven Bales, a man Kayla had an active protective order against. The footage of Kayla stepping into a car she should have feared, combined with the staged, ritualistic state of her body, pointed to a specific conclusion. This wasn't a crime of opportunity, it was a targeted, premeditated strike. When officers executed a search warrant at Steven Bales' residence, they found a 1-bedroom apartment that had been converted into a high-density compound. Inside, evidence suggested that at least 7 different adults were living and sleeping in the cramped 1-bedroom space. The group lived under a rigid, dark mythology. Journals found in the apartment revealed that Steven called himself the Grim Reaper, and his wife, Narina, Lady Death. Together with their followers, they operated under the name the Reapers. 2 weeks later, a 19-year-old named Bryn called 911 from a gas station in Ohio. He claimed he had just escaped Steven's apartment and identified the Reapers as the group responsible for Kayla's death. The homicide investigation now shifted toward a larger objective: dismantlement of a coordinated cult that had been hiding in plain sight. Steven built this group by targeting people at their most vulnerable. He recruited individuals struggling with addiction and social isolation, offering them a place to live and the promise of a chosen family. Once they were inside the apartment, he solidified his control by seizing their resources. He took his followers' bank cards and food stamps, ensuring they were entirely dependent on him for their basic survival. To maintain psychological dominance, Steven engineered a web of romantic rivalries. He engaged with his wife Narina, his follower Kaylin, and the victim, Kayla, all at once. He deliberately funneled that animosity toward Kayla, making her the common enemy. Steven specifically targeted Kaylin, fueling her jealousy and convincing her that Kayla was a threat to their family unit. He spent months stoking this resentment until Kaylin's devotion to him turned into a violent impulse. By combining financial dependency with manufactured romantic conflict, Steven created a highly volatile environment. He didn't just order a hit. He cultivated a setting where his followers were ready to commit murder as a way to prove their loyalty to the group. The cult functioned as a decentralized weapon. Bryn lured Kayla, feigning romance so she saved his number as boyfriend. At the facility, Narina monitored scanners, Sierra stood lookout, and Alex provided the firearm. Kaylin pulled the trigger, while Steven orchestrated everything without touching the weapon. This coordination allowed the group to carry out a complex, multi-person operation that kept the mastermind physically separated from the act of violence. The loyalty Steven worked so hard to build only lasted as long as the group stayed together. Once investigators separated the members into different interrogation rooms, the solidarity collapsed. Even Steven's wife, Narina, eventually identified him as the person who planned the entire killing. Steven also sabotaged his own defense during questioning. While trying to deflect blame onto Bryn, he inadvertently mentioned that he was with Bryn at the exact, unreleased time and location of the murder, placing himself at the scene of the crime before he was even accused of being there. This breakdown illustrates the inherent weakness of a cult's power. Their shared reality is a fragile illusion that shatters the moment individuals are isolated and forced to choose between their leader and their own freedom. Steven's attempt to distance himself from the trigger puller failed to account for the law of conspiracy. Planning a murder and recruiting others to carry it out carries the same legal weight as committing the act itself. The core members of the Reapers were sentenced to decades in prison for their roles in the trap. For orchestrating the death of Kayla Saddowski, Steven Bales was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. However, a chilling question remains. During the investigation, police recovered a recording of Kaylin confessing to 16 other murders committed by the group. While investigators have found no evidence to verify those claims, The case of the Reapers is a reminder of how easily a lethal organization can hide in a typical neighborhood. Kayla Saddowski was the first victim found, but if Kaylan's confession is true, she may not have been the first to fall.